23 years of marriage, and this is your gift, you cheating witch.
I always knew my marriage was like a leaky faucet. You ignore it until it floods the base end. Only, with Maggie, the leak was white, sticky, and came back from a business trip in a way Clorox couldn't fix. The laundry basket sat there like evidence at a crime scene. Tuesday night, 11:47 p.m., and I'm standing in our suburban kitchen holding my wife's silk blouse up to the light. The stain caught the overhead fluorescent like a neon sign screaming betrayal. Jesus Christ, I muttered, dropping the shirt back into the hamper. 23 years of marriage, and I'd never seen anything like this on Maggie's clothes. Hell, we barely touched anymore, let alone did anything that would leave mysterious stains on expensive silk. I'm Danny Morrison, 44 years old, mechanical engineer at Hartwell Industries. Not the sharpest tool in the shed, according to my wife, but sharp enough to know what dried seed looks like. The house felt different now. Every creak in the floorboards above sounded like footsteps of guilt. Maggie was upstairs, probably already asleep after her exhausting 3-day conference in Boston. Our daughter Emma was away at college, thank God. At least she wouldn't have to witness whatever came next. I grabbed a beer from the fridge and sat at the kitchen table, staring at that laundry basket like it might explode. My hands were shaking. Not from anger, not yet, from fear. 23 years of your life doesn't just end because of a stain on a shirt, right? Wrong. My phone buzzed. A text from my buddy Jared. How was the homecoming? Wife bring you anything nice from Boston? Yeah, she brought me something all right. I typed back, just the usual. Talk tomorrow. But I knew I wouldn't be talking to anyone tomorrow. Not until I figured out what the hell was going on. The next morning, Maggie floated down the stairs like nothing had happened. She looked good, better than good. Her auburn hair was perfectly styled, her makeup flawless despite claiming she was exhausted. She wore a navy business suit that probably cost more than my monthly salary. Morning, honey, she said, not quite meeting my eyes. Coffee ready? Just finished brewing. I handed her a mug, watching her face for any tell. Nothing. Maggie Morrison, corporate lawyer, had a poker face that could fool a polygraph. How was the conference? I asked, keeping my voice casual. Oh, you know how these things are. Boring presentations, terrible hotel food. She sipped her coffee and checked her phone. I'm running late. Big client meeting this morning. Which client? Now she looked at me, sharp green eyes, calculating. The Patterson Group. Why? Just curious about your work. We don't talk much anymore. She softened slightly. You're right, we should do dinner this weekend, somewhere nice. Guilt, I thought. She's feeling guilty. Sure, I said, looking forward to it. She kissed my cheek, a dry, perfunctory peck, and headed for the door. I watched through the window as she climbed into her BMW and drove away. Then I went upstairs and tore our bedroom apart. I'm not proud of what I did next, but desperate men do desperate things. I searched through her dresser, her closet, her jewelry box. Nothing obvious. Maggie was too smart to leave evidence lying around, but everyone makes mistakes. Her laptop was password protected, but I knew Maggie. She used the same password for everything. Our wedding date, 06151999. Sentimental, she used to say. Now it felt like a sick joke. The computer opened like a door to hell. Her email was clean, too clean. But buried in her browser history, I found it. A dating app called Discreet Meet, for professionals seeking sophisticated companionship. My hands were shaking again as I clicked the link. The profile that loaded made my stomach drop. It was definitely Maggie. Same photos she used for her law firm's website, but cropped to hide her wedding ring. Her username, SophisticatedLady38. Her bio read, successful attorney seeking intelligent conversation and passionate encounters. Discretion essential. No strings attached. I scrolled through her messages. Dozens of them, men of all ages, all eager to meet the sophisticated lady. But one conversation thread was longer than the others. Much longer. His username was Doc Marcus. Dr. Marcus Williams, according to his profile. 42 divorced emergency room physician at New England Medical Center. African American, handsome in that smooth, professional way that probably made nurses swoon. Their messages went back 6 months. 6 months of planning meetings, sharing fantasies, arranging hotel rooms. The most recent exchange was from last Monday. Doc Marcus. Can't wait to see you in Boston. Book the presidential suite at the Marriott. Sophisticated Lady 38. I'll bring something special to wear, or not wear. Doc Marcus. You're incredible, Maggie. My wife never made me feel like this. My wife. The fool was married too. I printed everything, every message, every photo, every sick detail of their affair. Then I sat in my home office, surrounded by evidence of my marriage's destruction, and tried to figure out what to do next. The smart thing would be to confront her, demand an explanation, maybe suggest counseling. But I wasn't feeling smart. I was feeling something darker. My phone rang. Jared. Hey, man. You sounded weird last night. Everything okay? Not really, I said. Can you meet me at the gym? I need to hit something. That bad, huh? I'll be there in 20. Jared's MMA gym was in the old warehouse district, a converted factory that smelled like sweat and determination. Jared himself was built like a brick wall, 5'8", 200 pounds of muscle and scar tissue. He'd done time for attack in his 20s, found God and mixed martial arts in prison, and came out a different man. Now he trained cops, firefighters, and guys like me who needed to work out their demons. Talk to me, he said, wrapping my hands for the heavy bag. I told him everything. The stain, the computer, the messages. Jared listened without judgment, nodding occasionally. So what are you going to do? He asked when I finished. I don't know. Part of me wants to eliminate them both. That's the anger talking. Anger makes you stupid. He held the heavy bag while I threw combinations. You want revenge, you got to be smart about it. What would you do? Me? I'd make them pay, but not with my fists. That just lands you in jail. He grinned, and for a second I saw the dangerous man he used to be. I'd hit them where it really hurts. Their reputation, their money, their pride. I threw a hard right cross that made the bag jump. Go on. Think about it, Danny. Your wife's a lawyer. Image is everything in that world. And this doctor, he's got a wife, probably kids. What happens when their secrets come out? They get destroyed. Exactly, but you got to be careful. Can't just go nuclear. You build up to it. Make them suffer a little at a time. I hit the bag again, harder this time. I like the sound of that. Of course, there's something else you should consider. What's that? Maybe she's not just cheating with one guy. The thought hit me like a punch to the gut. I stopped hitting the bag and stared at him. What makes you say that? Experience, brother. Women like your wife, they don't just have one affair. They collect them, makes them feel powerful. That night, I went back to Maggie's computer. This time I dug deeper, checking her deleted files, her hidden folders, her cloud storage. Jared was right. There wasn't just one affair. There were 5. 5 different men, 5 different relationships, all carefully compartmentalized. The doctor was the most recent, but before him, there was a married police detective, a college professor, a rival attorney from a competing firm, and, this one really stung, my former boss at the engineering company. Each relationship followed the same pattern. Flirtation, escalation, passionate encounters, then gradual cooling as Maggie moved on to the next conquest. She kept trophies, too. Photos, videos, intimate messages that would destroy these men if they ever became public. But it was the videos that really broke me. Hidden in an encrypted folder labeled Insurance, I found them. Dozens of videos, apparently shot without the men's knowledge. Maggie in hotel rooms, in cars, in what looked like a medical office after hours. She'd been documenting everything. The most recent video was from last week. Maggie and Dr. Marcus Williams in that Boston hotel room, doing things she'd never done with me in 23 years of marriage. I closed the laptop and walked to the bathroom. In the mirror, I saw a stranger, a middle-aged man with dead eyes and a face full of rage. This wasn't the Danny Morrison who'd married his college sweetheart and dreamed of growing old together. This was someone new, someone dangerous. When Maggie came home that night, I was waiting in the kitchen with a glass of wine and a smile. "Hey, beautiful," I said. "How was your day?" She looked surprised but pleased. "Better now. What's the occasion?" "Just thinking about what you said, about us not talking enough." I handed her the wine. "Tell me about your work, this Patterson group. They sound fascinating." We talked for an hour. She told me elaborate lies about her fake client, her imaginary meetings, her fictional colleagues. Every word was poison-wrapped in silk, delivered with the smile I'd once loved. When she went upstairs to change, I slipped a small GPS tracker under her car's bumper, a little device I'd ordered online that morning. If Maggie wanted to play games, I'd learn the rules. But first, I needed to understand exactly who I was dealing with. The next day, I called in sick to work and followed the GPS signal to downtown. Maggie's car was parked outside New England Medical Center. She was inside for 3 hours. When she came out, she wasn't alone. Dr. Marcus Williams walked beside her, his hand resting possessively on her lower back. They kissed goodbye like lovers, not like the strangers she'd pretended they were. I took photos with my phone's zoom lens, evidence for later. That evening, Maggie came home with flowers and takeout from our favorite restaurant. "Surprise," she said, kissing me with lips that had been on another man hours earlier. "Thought we could have a romantic dinner." "This is wonderful," I said, playing the grateful husband. "What's the occasion? Do I need an occasion to spoil my husband?" Yes, I thought. Guilt is a hell of an occasion. We ate dinner and talked about Emma's college plans, about my work, about everything except the truth. Maggie was a master performer. I had to give her that. If I hadn't seen the evidence with my own eyes, I might have believed we were a happy couple. After dinner, she suggested we go to bed early. "It's been too long," she whispered in my ear. I wanted to vomit. Instead, I smiled and followed her upstairs. The next morning, while Maggie showered, I carefully collected the clothes from our bedroom floor. Her silk blouse, her lace underwear, everything that might contain evidence of what we'd done the night before. I had a friend at the county lab, Mike Chen, a forensic technician who owed me a favor from our college days. I'd helped him pass thermodynamics. Now I needed him to help me pass this test of my sanity. "This is highly irregular, Danny," Mike said, accepting the sealed bag I'd brought to his lab. "What exactly are you looking for?" "DNA analysis. I need to know if there are any foreign materials." Mike's eyebrows shot up. "Foreign materials? Danny, are you—" "Just run the test, Mike, please." He sighed and labeled the bag. "This is going to take a few days. And Danny, whatever you're going through, maybe you should talk to someone. A counselor, a lawyer. I'll handle it my way." 3 days later, Mike called with results that confirmed my worst fears and gave me ammunition I'd never expected. "Danny, you need to sit down for this." I was already sitting in my car outside his lab, but I gripped the steering wheel tighter. "Just tell me. There are multiple DNA profiles in these samples, yours obviously, but also at least 2 others, both male, 1 Caucasian, 1 African American." My vision blurred. Even expecting it, hearing the confirmation felt like a physical blow. "There's something else," Mike continued. "I ran a standard STD panel on the samples. Danny, whoever your wife has been with, she's contracted something. Herpes specifically. HSV2. The phone slipped from my hand. Herpes. My wife had given me herpes. "Danny? You there?" I picked up the phone with shaking fingers. "I'm here." "You need to get tested. And you need to have a serious conversation with your wife." "Yeah," I said. "We're going to have a conversation, all right." That night, I sat in my home office, staring at the lab results and planning my next move. The smart thing would be to confront Maggie immediately, but Jared's words echoed in my head. "You want revenge? You gotta be smart about it." I was done being the faithful husband. It was time to be something else. I started with Dr. Marcus Williams. His social media profiles painted a picture of the perfect family man. Beautiful wife, 2 young daughters, big house in the suburbs. He posted regularly about family vacations, his daughter's soccer games, his wife's charity work. His wife's name was Dr. Jennifer Williams, a pediatrician at the same hospital. They'd been married 15 years, high school sweethearts who'd gone to medical school together, the American dream, at least on the surface. I wondered how Dr. Jennifer Williams would react to learning about her husband's affair with my wife. But I wasn't ready to go nuclear yet. First, I wanted to see just how deep this rabbit hole went. Over the next week, I became a different person. I called in vacation time at work and dedicated myself to surveillance. I followed Maggie, tracked her movements, documented her lies. The GPS tracker led me to hotels, restaurants, and the homes of her various lovers. She was busier than I'd imagined. Monday lunch with the police detective at a downtown hotel. Wednesday evening with the college professor at his apartment. Friday afternoon with Dr. Williams at a medical conference that didn't exist. Each encounter was photographed, documented, added to my growing file of evidence. I felt like a private investigator building a case, except the case was against my own wife. The hardest part was maintaining the facade at home. Maggie would return from her affairs and kiss me hello, tell me about her day, ask about mine. We'd eat dinner together, watch TV, sometimes even make love, all while I knew exactly where she'd been and what she'd been doing. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Emma called from college, upset about some drama with her roommate. Maggie spent an hour on the phone, being the perfect supportive mother, giving advice about friendship and trust and staying true to yourself. The hypocrisy made me sick. After Maggie hung up, she found me in the kitchen, gripping the counter so hard my knuckles were white. "Danny, are you okay? You look pale." I turned to face her, this woman I'd loved for over half my life, this stranger who'd been poisoning our marriage for months. "I need to ask you something, Maggie, and I need you to be honest with me." Something flickered in her eyes. Fear? Guilt? "Of course, what is it? Are you happy? In our marriage, I mean, are you happy?" She relaxed slightly. "What brought this on? Just answer the question." She moved closer, put her hands on my chest. "Danny, we've been together for 23 years. Of course there are ups and downs, but yes, I'm happy. We're happy." The lie came so easily, delivered with such conviction that for a moment I almost believed her. Almost forgot about the photos on my phone, the lab results in my desk, the GPS tracker under her car. "Good," I said, covering her hands with mine. "I'm happy too." That night, after Maggie fell asleep, I made a decision. The time for surveillance was over. It was time to act. I started with the detective. Detective Ray Sullivan, Boston PD, married with 3 kids, 20-year veteran of the force. According to his department profile, he specialized in domestic violence cases. The irony wasn't lost on me. I found him at Murphy's Pub, a cop bar downtown where he apparently spent most Friday nights. He was alone at the bar, still wearing his wedding ring, scrolling through his phone with the focused attention of a man reading dirty messages. I ordered a beer and sat 2 stools down, watching him in the mirror behind the bar. He was younger than me, maybe late 30s, with the kind of rugged good looks that probably made women overlook his obvious character flaws. After 20 minutes, he got up to use the restroom. I followed. "Detective Sullivan?" He turned, immediately wary. Cops develop good instincts about confrontation. "Do I know you?" "Not yet, but we have a mutual friend, Maggie Morrison." The blood drained from his face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you do. Sophisticated lady, 38. You've been messaging her for 3 months, meeting her at the Hilton downtown every other Tuesday." He stepped closer, trying to intimidate me. "Who the hell are you?" "I'm her husband." For a moment, neither of us moved. The bathroom was empty, except for us, fluorescent lights humming overhead. The sound of the bar muffled through the door. "Look," Sullivan said finally, "I don't want any trouble." "Too late for that, detective. You've been sleeping with my wife. You've exposed her to diseases. You've made me complicit in your infidelity." I smiled, and it felt like broken glass. "But I'm not here to fight you." "What do you want?" "I want you to stop seeing her." "Done. It wasn't serious." "I know exactly what it was. I have the messages, the photos, the hotel receipts." I pulled out my phone and showed him a picture I'd taken of him leaving the Hilton with Maggie. "I also have your wife's work number at the elementary school where she teaches, and your captain's direct line." His face went white. "You fool." "Maybe, but I'm a fool who holds your career in his hands." I put my phone away. "Stay away from my wife, detective. This is your only warning." I left him standing in that bathroom, probably wondering how his life had gotten so complicated so quickly. 1 down, 4 to go. The college professor was next. Dr. Richard Hayes, English literature, Northeastern University. Divorced, no kids, the kind of intellectual who probably quoted poetry during Zex. His affair with Maggie had been going on the longest, almost a year according to their message history. I found him in his office during evening hours, grading papers with the dedication of a man who had nothing better to do. The English building was nearly empty, just a few graduate students in the library and a janitor mopping floors. "Professor Hayes?" He looked up from his desk, adjusting wire-rimmed glasses. "Yes, office hours are by appointment. This won't take long. I'm Danny Morrison, Maggie Morrison's husband." The pen slipped from his fingers. I don't... Please don't insult my intelligence, Professor. We both know why I'm here." He stood slowly, a tall man with graying hair and the soft build of someone who'd spent his life behind desks. "Mr. Morrison, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding is how a man with your education could be stupid enough to leave a paper trail." I pulled out a folder and dropped it on his desk. "Emails, text messages, credit card receipts from hotels. You kept records of everything." He opened the folder with trembling hands, his face growing paler with each page. "How did you get these?" "Does it matter? What matters is what I do with them." "What do you want?" "The same thing I wanted from Detective Sullivan. for you to disappear from my wife's life. His head snapped up. Sullivan, you mean there are others? I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Professor, you're one of 5. Did you really think you were special? The knowledge hit him like a physical blow. He sank back into his chair, looking every one of his 50-something years. 5, he whispered. 5 that I know of. There could be more. I leaned against his desk. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to end your relationship with my wife. No dramatic goodbye, no explanation. You're just going to stop responding to her messages. And if I don't, then these documents find their way to the university administration. How do you think the tenure committee would react to learning about your affair with a married woman? The hotel receipts charged to your university credit card? He closed the folder with shaking hands. You've made your point. Have I? Because I need to be absolutely clear about something, Professor. If you ever contact my wife again, if you even think about her, I will destroy you. Your career, your reputation, your comfortable little life, all of it will disappear. I left him sitting in his office, surrounded by student papers and the wreckage of his poor decisions. 2 down. The rival attorney was more challenging. Patricia Vance, senior partner at Kellerman & Associates, Maggie's biggest competitor for high-profile corporate clients. Their affair was less romantic than the others, more about power and dominance than emotion. I couldn't approach her directly. She was too smart, too well-connected. Instead, I went after her weakness, her marriage to a prominent city councilman. Thomas Vance was a public figure, a man whose political career depended on his image as a family values conservative. He gave speeches about the sanctity of marriage, the importance of traditional relationships, the moral decay of modern society. I wondered how he'd feel about his wife's extracurricular activities. I arranged to bump into him at a charity fundraiser downtown. One of those rubber chicken dinners where the city's elite gathered to pat themselves on the back for their generosity. Councilman Vance, Danny Morrison, I work for Hartwell Industries. He shook my hand with the practiced enthusiasm of a politician. Mr. Morrison, great to meet you. How are you enjoying the evening? It's wonderful. Your wife must be proud of your work with the Family Values Initiative. Patricia is very supportive, yes, though she's working late tonight. Big case, you know how it is. Actually, that's what I wanted to talk to you about. I think there might be some confusion about where your wife is tonight. His smile faltered slightly. I'm sorry? I pulled out my phone and showed him a photo I'd taken 2 hours earlier. Patricia Vance entering a downtown hotel with my wife. The image was clear, unmistakable. This was taken at 8:30 tonight. The Marriott on Federal Street. Thomas Vance stared at the photo, his face cycling through confusion, understanding, and rage. What is this? Your wife is having an affair with mine. Has been for about 4 months. He grabbed my arm, his politician's smile completely gone. You're lying. I have more photos, messages, hotel receipts. Your wife paid for most of them with her firm's credit card. What do you want? His voice was barely a whisper. Nothing from you, Councilman. This is between your wife and me, but I thought you should know the truth about your marriage. I left him standing there, probably wondering if his political career could survive the scandal of a very public divorce. 3 down. My former boss was the hardest one to confront, not because he was dangerous or well-connected, but because his betrayal cut the deepest. Frank Rodriguez had been more than my supervisor at Hartwell Industries. He'd been a mentor, almost a father figure. When my own dad died 10 years ago, Frank had been the one to help me through the grief. He'd recommended me for promotions, invited me to company parties, treated me like family, and he'd been screwing my wife for 6 months. I found him at his usual lunch spot, a deli near the industrial park where we'd eaten together hundreds of times. He was alone, reading the newspaper, probably thinking about his afternoon meeting with my wife. Mind if I join you, Frank? He looked up, surprised but pleased. Danny, what brings you downtown? Playing hooky? Something like that. I sat across from him, studying his face. He looked older than his 60 years, gray hair thinning, lines around his eyes. A man approaching retirement with a wife of 35 years and grandchildren who adored him. Frank, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Of course. What's on your mind? How long have you been sleeping with my wife? The newspaper fell from his hands. For a long moment, the only sound was the deli's background chatter, other people having normal conversations about normal problems. Danny, 6 months, Frank. I know about the hotel meetings, the messages, everything. I leaned forward. What I don't understand is why. Why would you do this to me? His shoulders sagged. It just happened. She came to me after you got passed over for that promotion. She was upset, said you were depressed, that your marriage was struggling. So you decided to help by screwing her. It wasn't like that. She was vulnerable, and I made a mistake. A mistake? Frank, you've been meeting her twice a week for 6 months. That's not a mistake. That's a relationship. He couldn't meet my eyes. What are you going to do? That depends on you. Are you going to end it? Yes, absolutely. It should never have started. And if I find out you're lying, if I discover you're still seeing her? You won't. I swear, Danny. I'll transfer departments if I have to. Whatever it takes. I stood to leave, then turned back. Frank, you were like a father to me. That's what makes this so unforgivable. I left him sitting there with his untouched sandwich and his guilt. 4 down, 1 to go. But Dr. Marcus Williams wasn't going to be as easy as the others. He was arrogant, successful, probably used to getting whatever he wanted. He wouldn't scare easily, and he had less to lose than the married men. I needed a different approach. That night, I sat in my home office, planning my final confrontation. Maggie was upstairs, probably messaging her lovers, wondering why they'd all suddenly gone silent. She'd tried to reach Detective Sullivan twice, sent several texts to Professor Hayes. Her confusion was almost amusing. My phone rang. Jared. How's the war going, General? 4 down, 1 to go. Damn, Danny. You work fast. Any casualties on your side? Not yet, but the last one's going to be tricky. The doctor? Yeah. He's got an ego the size of Boston. I need to hit him where it really hurts. What's his weakness? I thought about Dr. Marcus Williams, his perfect social media life, his successful career, his beautiful family. His reputation, everything he's built depends on people respecting him. So destroy his reputation. I'm working on it. After I hung up, I spent the rest of the night researching Dr. Williams. His medical license, his hospital privileges, his standing in the medical community. He was well regarded, published in medical journals, spoke at conferences. He had a lot to lose. The next morning, I called New England Medical Center and asked to speak with the chief of staff. This is Dr. Patricia Chen. How can I help you? Dr. Chen, my name is Danny Morrison. I need to report some concerning behavior by one of your emergency room physicians. What kind of concerning behavior? Dr. Marcus Williams has been having an inappropriate relationship with one of his patients, a married woman. I have documentation. There was a long pause. Mr. Morrison, these are serious allegations. Do you have proof? Photos, messages, hotel receipts. Dr. Williams has been meeting with this patient outside of the hospital for several months. I see. Can you come in this afternoon? We'll need to review your evidence. I'll be there at 2. That afternoon, I sat in Dr. Chen's office with a manila folder full of evidence. She reviewed everything carefully, her expression growing more serious with each document. This is very troubling, Mr. Morrison. If these allegations are true, Dr. Williams has violated several hospital policies and medical ethics guidelines. What happens now? We'll conduct an internal investigation. Dr. Williams will be suspended pending the outcome. And if the investigation confirms what I've shown you, he'll be terminated. We may also report him to the state medical board. I left the hospital feeling lighter than I had in weeks. By evening, Dr. Marcus Williams would be explaining to his wife why he'd lost his job. 5 down. That night, Maggie came home in tears. Danny, something terrible has happened. Marcus, Dr. Williams from the hospital, he's been suspended. Some kind of ethics violation. I held her while she cried crocodile tears for her lover's destroyed career. I'm sorry, honey. That must be hard for you to hear. He was such a good doctor. I can't believe he'd do anything wrong. People aren't always who they seem to be, Maggie. Sometimes the people we trust the most are the ones who hurt us. She looked up at me with red-rimmed eyes. You're right. Thank God I have you. You'd never lie to me, would you, Danny? Never, I said, stroking her hair. I'd never betray your trust. With all 5 lovers neutralized, I expected Maggie to retreat, maybe even confess. Instead, she doubled down on the lies. I've been thinking, she said over breakfast the next morning, maybe we should take a vacation. Get away from everything. Reconnect. That sounds wonderful. Where did you have in mind? Somewhere tropical? The Caribbean, maybe? We could leave next week? I almost laughed. She was trying to remove me from the playing field, probably hoping her lovers would resurface once the heat died down. She had no idea I was the one applying the pressure. Next week might be difficult. I have that big project at work. Her face tightened almost imperceptibly. Can't someone else handle it? We need this, Danny. Our marriage needs this. You're right. Let me see what I can arrange. That afternoon, I called Emma at college. Dad, is everything okay? You never call during the week. Everything's fine, sweetheart. I just wanted to hear your voice. Oh, that's sweet. Mom said you guys might take a vacation. So Maggie had already started laying groundwork with our daughter. We're thinking about it. How are your classes going? Good. Well, mostly good. I'm struggling a bit in statistics, but Professor Hayes said he'd help me with extra tutoring. My blood froze. Professor Hayes? Richard Hayes from Northeastern? Yeah. Do you know him? He's really nice. Very understanding about students who are having trouble. The son of a witch was using my daughter to get back at me. Or maybe to get back to Maggie. Either way, he'd crossed a line I didn't even know existed. Emma, I want you to stay away from Professor Hayes. What? Dad, why? He's just trying to help. Promise me, no private meetings, no tutoring sessions. If you need help with statistics, find another tutor. Dad, you're scaring me. What's going on? Just promise me, Emma. Please. Okay, I promise. But I don't understand. I'll explain later. I love you, sweetheart. I hung up and immediately called Professor Hayes. We had an agreement, I said when he answered. Mr. Morrison, I don't know what you're talking about. My daughter, you fool. Emma Morrison, she's in your statistics class. I teach hundreds of students. Cut the crap, Professor. You offered to tutor her. Private sessions, just the two of you. What were you planning? Nothing inappropriate, I assure you. She's struggling with the material. She's 19 years old, Professor. My 19-year-old daughter. If you so much as look at her wrong, I will end you. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. Stay away from Emma, or I'll make our previous conversation look like a friendly chat. I hung up and immediately called Emma back. Dad, what's going on? You sounded really upset. Emma, I need you to transfer out of Professor Hayes' class. What? Dad, we're halfway through the semester. I can't just... Yes, you can. Talk to your advisor. Explain that there's a conflict. Take statistics next semester with a different professor. This is crazy. Why won't you tell me what's happening? Because your mother's been sleeping with your statistics professor, and now he might be targeting you to get revenge on me. It's complicated, sweetheart, adult stuff, but I need you to trust me on this. Fine, but you owe me an explanation. I know. Soon, I promise. That night, I lay awake planning my next move. The gloves were coming off. Professor Hayes had made it personal by involving Emma. Detective Sullivan was probably getting restless. Dr. Williams was facing professional ruin and might decide he had nothing left to lose. It was time to go nuclear. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove to Emma's college. I found Professor Hayes in his office looking haggard and nervous. Mr. Morrison, you can't keep coming here. My daughter transferred out of your class this morning. Good. That's what you wanted, isn't it? What I want is for you to understand something, Professor. You think you're playing games with me, but you're not. This isn't a game. I sat down across from his desk, close enough to see the fear in his eyes. You approached my daughter because you thought it would hurt me. Maybe you thought it would give you leverage, or maybe you just wanted to cause me pain. Either way, you miscalculated. I never intended... Here's what's going to happen. You're going to resign from this university. Effective immediately. That's ridiculous. I have tenure, had tenure, past tense. I pulled out my phone and showed him a new folder of screenshots. These are from your university email account. Messages to female students, inappropriate comments, requests for private meetings. His face went white. Those are taken out of context. Maybe. But context is everything, isn't it, Professor? And the context is that you're a middle-aged man who's been having an affair with a married woman who then targeted her teenage daughter. Emma is 19, my 19-year-old daughter. And if these emails become public, if the university administration sees them alongside evidence of your affair with my wife, what do you think will happen to your career? He stared at the phone screen, probably calculating the end of his professional life. What do you want? Your resignation letter, today. And if I refuse? Then by tomorrow morning, every administrator at this university will have copies of these emails, along with documentation of your affair with my wife. The student newspaper will probably find it interesting, too. He opened his laptop with shaking hands. You're destroying my life. No, Professor, you destroyed your life when you decided to screw my wife. I'm just making sure everyone knows about it. An hour later, I walked out of Northeastern University with Professor Hayes' resignation letter in my pocket, but I wasn't done, not even close. That afternoon, I drove to the police station where Detective Sullivan worked. I asked to speak with his captain. Captain Rodriguez, I'm Danny Morrison. I need to report some concerning behavior by one of your detectives. What kind of concerning behavior? Detective Sullivan has been having an affair with my wife. He's been using his position as a police officer to intimidate me when I tried to confront him about it. Captain Rodriguez was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s, the kind of cop who'd probably seen everything twice. She listened to my story without interruption, occasionally taking notes. Do you have proof of these allegations? I handed her a folder. Photos, messages, hotel receipts. Detective Sullivan has been meeting with my wife for 3 months. She reviewed the evidence carefully. This is serious, Mr. Morrison. If true, Detective Sullivan has violated several department policies. What happens now? Internal Affairs will investigate. Detective Sullivan will be placed on administrative leave pending the outcome. And if the investigation confirms what I've shown you, he'll face disciplinary action, possibly termination. I left the police station feeling satisfied. By evening, Detective Sullivan would be explaining to his wife and 3 children why he'd lost his job. But the real prize was still waiting at home. I found Maggie in our bedroom, pacing and talking rapidly on her phone. I don't understand what's happening, she was saying. First Marcus gets suspended, now Richard resigned, and Ray isn't answering his phone. She saw me in the doorway and quickly ended the call. Danny, you're home early. Rough day at work. Who were you talking to? Just a friend from the office. There's been some drama at the hospital. What kind of drama? She sat on the bed, trying to look casual. Oh, you know how these things are. Office politics, rumors, nothing important. I sat beside her, close enough to smell her perfume, the same perfume she'd worn to meet her lovers. Maggie, we need to talk. About what? About us, about our marriage, about the lies. Something flickered in her eyes. What lies? The lies you've been telling me for months, about where you've been, who you've been with, what you've been doing. She stood up quickly. Danny, I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? Then let me refresh your memory. I pulled out my phone and showed her the first photo. Maggie and Dr. Williams entering a hotel. Her face went white. Detective Sullivan leaving the Hilton downtown, I said, swiping to the next photo. Professor Hayes in his apartment building. Patricia Vance at the Marriott. Frank Rodriguez at that little motel on Route 1. With each photo, Maggie seemed to shrink smaller. By the time I finished, she was sitting on the bed again, her hands shaking. Danny, I can explain. Can you? Can you explain why my wife of 23 years has been screwing 5 different men? Can you explain why you gave me herpes? She gasped. How did you? Lab tests, Maggie. DNA analysis. I know everything. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Maggie started to cry. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry, Danny. I never meant for this to happen. Which part? The cheating or getting caught? All of it. I was lonely and you were working so much and I felt invisible. So you decided to become visible to 5 different men. She looked up at me with tears streaming down her face. What are you going to do? I smiled, and it felt like winter. What am I going to do? Maggie, I've already done it. What do you mean? Dr. Williams has been suspended from the hospital. He'll probably lose his medical license. Professor Hayes resigned from the university this morning. His career is over. Detective Sullivan is on administrative leave facing an internal affairs investigation. Patricia Vance's husband knows about your affair. I expect he'll be filing for divorce soon. And Frank Rodriguez? Well, let's just say his wife received some interesting photos this afternoon. Maggie stared at me in horror. You destroyed them all? I gave them exactly what they deserved. What they gave me. Danny, please. Please what? Please forgive you? Please pretend this never happened? Please go back to being the faithful husband while you screw half the city? I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our suburban street, our neighbors' houses, the life I'd thought was real. 23 years, Maggie. 23 years I've loved you, supported you, been faithful to you, and this is how you repay me. I'll change, she said desperately. I'll get counseling. I'll do whatever it takes. It's too late for that. What do you mean? I turned back to face her, this woman who'd been my whole world, who'd become my worst enemy. I mean, I'm done, Maggie. With the lies, with the cheating, with you. You're leaving me? No, I said. You're leaving me. Tomorrow morning, you're going to pack your things and move out. You're going to file for divorce, and you're going to give me everything I ask for. And if I refuse? I pulled out my phone again, opened a video file. Then everyone gets to see these. The video started playing. Maggie and Dr. Williams in that Boston hotel room doing things that would destroy what was left of both their reputations. I have videos with all 5 of them, Maggie. Hours of footage. Some of it looks like it was shot without their knowledge. She lunged for the phone, but I pulled it away. You recorded us? You recorded them. I just found the files on your computer. Your insurance folder, remember? She sank back onto the bed, the fight going out of her. So here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to disappear quietly. No drama, no fighting, no trying to take half of everything I've worked for. You're going to leave, and you're going to stay gone. What about Emma? Emma will learn the truth eventually, but that's between you and her. Maggie looked up at me with something like fear. I don't recognize you, Danny. You're not the man I married. You're right, I said. The man you married was a fool. He trusted you, loved you, believed in you. That man is dead, Maggie. You eliminated him. I walked toward the door, then paused. Oh, and Maggie, if you ever try to contact any of those men again, if you ever try to cause trouble for me or Emma, those videos go public, all of them. Think about that before you do anything stupid. I left her sitting there in our bedroom, surrounded by the wreckage of our marriage and her own poor choices. The next morning, I woke up alone. Maggie's side of the bed was empty, her clothes gone from the closet. She'd left during the night like a thief, taking only what she could carry. Good. It saved us both an awkward goodbye. I made coffee and sat in the kitchen, watching the sunrise through the window. For the first time in months, I felt something like peace. My phone rang. Emma. Dad? Mom called me last night. She said you two are getting divorced. That's right, sweetheart. She was crying. She said you'd done something terrible to her friends. I closed my eyes. Of course, Maggie would try to turn Emma against me. What did she tell you? She said you'd been stalking her, threatening people she worked with. She said you'd lost your mind. Emma, there's a lot you don't know about your mother. I know she loves you. I know she's been trying to save your marriage while you've been acting crazy. The anger in Emma's voice cut deep. Maggie had gotten to her first, poisoned the well with lies and half-truths. Emma, I need you to listen to me. No, I'm tired of listening to you. First, you make me drop Professor Hayes' class for no reason. Now you're destroying Mom's life. What's wrong with you? Your mother has been having affairs, Emma. Multiple affairs. For months. Silence on the other end of the line. That's not true, she said finally. I have proof. Photos, messages. You're lying. Mom would never do that. Emma, don't call me again until you're ready to apologize to Mom and fix this mess you've made. She hung up. I sat there holding the dead phone, feeling like I'd been punched in the stomach. Maggie had taken my daughter from me too, but I wasn't done fighting. That afternoon, I drove to Emma's college. I found her in the student union sitting alone at a corner table, looking miserable. Emma, she looked up, her eyes red from crying. I told you not to call me. This isn't a phone call, and we need to talk. I have nothing to say to you. I sat down across from her, ignoring her protests. Your mother has been lying to you, Emma. About me, about our marriage, about everything. Stop it. She's been having affairs with 5 different men. I have proof. I don't want to hear this. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the photos. Maggie and Dr. Williams entering a hotel together. Emma glanced at the screen, then looked away quickly. That doesn't prove anything. They could be having a business meeting. I swiped to the next photo. The same 2 people leaving the hotel 3 hours later. Maggie's hair disheveled, her clothes wrinkled. A 3-hour business meeting? Emma's face crumpled. Please stop. I know this is hard to hear, sweetheart, but you deserve to know the truth about why our marriage ended. Even if Mom made mistakes, that doesn't justify what you did to those people. What did I do to them, Emma? I exposed the truth. They were all married men, all cheating on their wives. They got exactly what they deserved. You ruined their lives. They ruined their own lives, and mine, and yours. Emma started crying again. Why couldn't you just forgive her? Why couldn't you work it out? Because some things can't be forgiven, Emma. Some betrayals are too deep. I reached across the table and took her hand. I know you're angry with me. I know you think I'm the villain here, but someday you'll understand that I did what I had to do. She pulled her hand away. I'll never understand this. Maybe not, but you're my daughter, Emma. No matter what happens between your mother and me, no matter how angry you are, you're still my daughter. And I love you. She looked at me through her tears. I love you too, Dad. But I can't deal with this right now. I understand. Take all the time you need. I left her sitting there, knowing it might be months or years before she spoke to me again. But at least she knew the truth now. The next few weeks passed in a blur of lawyers and paperwork. Maggie had hired Patricia Vance's former partner, a shark named David Chen, who specialized in high-conflict divorces. He tried to paint me as an abusive husband, a stalker, a man who'd lost his mind and destroyed innocent people's lives. But I had the evidence. Photos, videos, DNA tests, hotel receipts. The truth was on my side, even if it was ugly. The settlement negotiations were brutal. Maggie wanted half of everything. The house, my retirement accounts, even my inheritance from my father. Her lawyer argued that she deserved compensation for the emotional trauma I'd caused her. My lawyer, a quiet woman named Sarah Mitchell, had a different perspective. Your wife committed infidelity with multiple partners, she told Chen during one particularly heated session. She exposed your client to sexually transmitted diseases. She violated the trust and sanctity of their marriage in the most fundamental way possible. And now, she wants to be rewarded for it. My client made mistakes, Chen replied, but your client's response was disproportionate and vindictive. My client defended himself against a sustained campaign of betrayal and deception. Everything he did was legal and justified. In the end, Maggie got the BMW and half of our savings account. I kept the house, my retirement funds, and most importantly, my self-respect. The divorce was finalized on a gray Tuesday in November, exactly 1 year after I'd found that first stain on Maggie's blouse. I celebrated by burning our wedding photos in the backyard fire pit. But the story wasn't over. Not quite. 3 months after the divorce, I was having dinner at Murphy's Pub, the same place where I'd confronted Detective Sullivan, when a familiar face walked through the door. Dr. Marcus Williams looked like hell. His expensive clothes were wrinkled, his usually perfect hair unkempt. He'd lost weight, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He saw me and walked over to my table. Danny Morrison. Dr. Williams, or is it still doctor? I heard you lost your medical license. He sat down uninvited. You destroyed my life. No, doctor. You destroyed your life when you decided to screw my wife. I lost everything. My job, my license, my family. My wife took the kids and moved back to California. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Are you really sorry? I considered the question. Actually, no, I'm not sorry at all. He leaned forward, his eyes burning with hatred. You think you won? You think you got your revenge? I think I got justice. Justice? You want to know about justice? Your precious wife is pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? Maggie's pregnant, 3 months along. And before you ask, it's not yours. I stared at him, trying to process what he'd just said. Whose is it? Mine. We were still seeing each other after you thought you'd scared me off, meeting at different hotels, being more careful. She called me last week with the news. My vision blurred. You're lying. Am I? Call her and ask. He stood up, straightening his wrinkled jacket. You thought you'd won, Danny, but Maggie and I are going to have a baby together. We're going to be a family, and there's nothing you can do about it. He walked away, leaving me sitting there with the wreckage of my victory. I called Maggie that night. Danny, why are you calling me? Is it true? Are you pregnant? A long pause. How did you find out? So it's true. Yes, it's true. And it's his? Williams's? Yes. I felt something break inside me, something I didn't even know was still whole. How long have you been seeing him? We never stopped seeing each other, Danny, even after you thought you destroyed him. But his job, his license, he's appealing the decision. And even if he doesn't get his license back, we'll figure it out. We love each other. Love. The word tasted like poison. Does Emma know? Not yet. I'm going to tell her this weekend. She'll be thrilled. A new baby brother or sister from mommy's affair. Don't be cruel, Danny. This baby is innocent. Innocent? Nothing about this situation is innocent, Maggie. I know you're angry. Angry? I'm past angry. I'm in a whole different place now. What does that mean? I looked around my empty house, at the bare walls where our family photos used to hang, at the life I'd built and destroyed in the name of revenge. It means congratulations, Maggie. You and Dr. Williams deserve each other. I hung up and sat in the darkness, thinking about the baby that would carry another man's DNA, about Emma who might never forgive me, about the hollow victory I'd won. But as I sat there, something else began to grow inside me. Not anger this time, or hurt, or betrayal, something colder, something more dangerous. If Maggie thought the war was over, she was wrong. It was just beginning. The next morning, I called my lawyer. Sarah, it's Danny Morrison. I need to ask you about parental rights. What kind of parental rights? If my ex-wife has a baby with another man, what rights does that man have if something happens to her? Well, if he's the biological father and his name is on the birth certificate, he'd have full parental rights. Why do you ask? Just curious about how these things work. Danny, you're not planning anything foolish, are you? Of course not, Sarah. I'm just trying to understand the legal landscape. But as I hung up, I was already planning my next move. Dr. Marcus Williams thought he'd won by getting Maggie pregnant. He thought he'd gotten the last laugh, the final revenge. He had no idea what real revenge looked like. I spent the next week researching Williams's new life. Without his medical license, he'd taken a job as a pharmaceutical sales rep, a significant step down from emergency room physician, but still respectable work. He was living in a small apartment downtown, driving a used Honda instead of his former BMW. His ex-wife had taken him for everything in their divorce, just like I'd predicted. But he had Maggie now, and the baby on the way. In his mind, that probably made up for everything he'd lost. I was going to change his mind about that. The plan came to me while I was reading the newspaper over coffee. A small article on page 3. Pharmaceutical company under investigation for falsified pill trials. Williams's new employer, MedTech Solutions, was apparently involved in some shady business practices. Nothing that would necessarily implicate a sales rep, but enough to make the company nervous about negative publicity. I wondered how they'd react to learning that one of their sales reps had lost his medical license for having inappropriate relationships with patients. I called MedTech's Human Resources Department. This is Danny Morrison. I need to report some concerning information about one of your employees. What kind of concerning information? Marcus Williams, one of your sales representatives, was recently stripped of his medical license for having inappropriate relationships with patients. I have documentation if you'd like to review it. I see. Can you send us what you have? Of course. I'll email it this afternoon. By the end of the week, Dr. Marcus Williams was unemployed again. But I wasn't done. I'd learned something important during my research. Williams had been claiming Maggie as a dependent on his insurance, even though they weren't married. Insurance fraud was a serious crime, especially for someone who'd already lost his professional license. I made another phone call. State Insurance Commission, I'd like to report a case of insurance fraud. The investigation took 2 months. When it was over, Marcus Williams was facing criminal charges and a hefty fine. His chances of ever getting his medical license back had dropped to 0. But the real masterstroke came when Maggie was 6 months pregnant. I'd been watching their apartment, documenting their routines, learning their vulnerabilities. Williams was drinking heavily now, probably depressed about his continued unemployment and legal troubles. He'd been arrested twice for drunk driving, and his probation officer was getting tired of his excuses. That's when I made my final move. I called Williams' probation officer. Officer Martinez, this is Danny Morrison. I have some information about Marcus Williams that you might find interesting. What kind of information? He's been drinking again, heavily, and he's been violent with his pregnant girlfriend. Do you have proof of this? I have photos of him leaving liquor stores, videos of him stumbling drunk into his apartment building, and I have recordings of him threatening his girlfriend. The recordings were fake, of course. Digital manipulation wasn't that difficult if you knew what you were doing, but they sounded real enough to fool a busy probation officer. Williams was arrested the next day for violating his probation. The judge revoked his bail and sent him to county jail for 6 months. Maggie was left alone, 6 months pregnant, with no income and no support system. She called me 3 days after Williams' arrest. Danny, please, I need help. Help with what, Maggie? Money. Food. I can't afford the rent on this apartment, and Marcus is in jail, and I don't know what to do. Have you tried calling your former lovers? Maybe Detective Sullivan or Professor Hayes could help? You know they can't. You destroyed their lives, too. I exposed the truth about them. There's a difference. Please, Danny. I'm pregnant. I'm scared. You should have thought about that before you decided to have another man's baby. This isn't about me. It's about an innocent child. You're right. It is about an innocent child. A child who's going to grow up knowing that his father is a criminal and his mother is a hooker. She started crying. How can you be so cruel? 23 years of marriage, Maggie. You threw it all away for what? A few hours of excitement with men who didn't love you? Marcus loves me. Marcus is in jail. And when he gets out, he'll blame you for everything that's happened to him. How long do you think that love will last? I hate you, she whispered. Good. Now you know how I felt when I found out about your affairs. What do you want from me, Danny? What will it take for you to leave us alone? I thought about that question. What did I want? Revenge? I'd already gotten that. Justice? That was a more complicated question. I want you to understand something, Maggie. Actions have consequences. You chose to destroy our marriage, and now you're living with the results. I made mistakes. You made choices. Every time you met one of those men, every time you lied to me, every time you came home and pretended to be a loving wife, those were choices. So, what happens now? Now, you live with those choices. You figure out how to raise that baby on your own because Marcus Williams isn't going to be there for you. Not after what's coming next. What's coming next? You'll see. I hung up and immediately called Emma. Dad, I wasn't expecting to hear from you. Emma, I need to tell you something about your mother. What now? She's pregnant. Silence on the other end of the line. Emma, are you there? Pregnant? But you two are divorced. The baby isn't mine, sweetheart. It's Dr. Williams. More silence. Emma? I can't deal with this right now, Dad. I know it's a lot to process. My mother is pregnant with her lover's baby. My father destroyed 5 people's lives for revenge. My family is completely insane. Emma, I have to go. I have finals to study for. She hung up. I sat in my empty house thinking about the wreckage I'd created. Maggie alone and pregnant. Williams in jail. Emma barely speaking to me. 5 men whose lives I'd destroyed, and I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no regret, no guilt. Just emptiness. Maybe that's what revenge really was. Not the satisfaction of seeing your enemies suffer, but the hollow realization that their suffering didn't heal your own wounds. But I wasn't done yet. There was one more move to make. The next morning, I drove to the county jail and requested a meeting with Marcus Williams. He looked terrible. Orange jumpsuit, unshaven, eyes hollow with defeat. When he saw me through the bulletproof glass, his face twisted with rage. You fool, he said into the phone. This is all your fault. Hello, Marcus. How are you enjoying county accommodation? You set me up, the insurance fraud, the probation violation, all of it. I simply reported the truth to the appropriate authorities. The truth? You fabricated evidence? Prove it. He slammed his fist against the glass. When you get out of here, you'll have nothing. No job, no money, no future. And Maggie will realize that hitching her wagon to a loser like you was the biggest mistake of her life. She loves me. She loved the idea of you. The successful doctor, the stable provider, the escape from her boring marriage. But that man doesn't exist anymore, does he, Marcus? His face crumpled. You destroyed everything. No, Marcus. You destroyed everything when you decided to screw another man's wife. I just made sure you paid the price. I stood to leave, then turned back. Oh, and Marcus? When that baby is born, when you're struggling to find work and pay child support on a minimum wage salary, remember this conversation. Remember that every hardship you face is the direct result of your own choices. I left him sitting there in his orange jumpsuit, probably contemplating the ruins of his life. 6 weeks later, Maggie gave birth to a son. She named him Daniel. Whether out of spite or some twisted sense of nostalgia, I couldn't say. She sent me a photo through Emma. A tiny wrinkled face, eyes closed, completely innocent of the chaos surrounding his birth. Looking at that photo, I felt something I hadn't experienced in months, regret. Not for what I'd done to Maggie or her lovers. They'd gotten exactly what they deserved, but for what I'd become in the process. The man who'd married Maggie Morrison 24 years ago wouldn't recognize the person I'd become. That man had believed in forgiveness, in second chances, in the fundamental goodness of people. This man, the man I was now, believed in consequences, in justice, in the cold satisfaction of watching enemies fall. Maybe that was the real cost of betrayal. Not just the loss of trust or love, but the loss of who you used to be. But as I looked at that photo of Maggie's son, Marcus's son, I realized I wasn't done changing yet, because somewhere in the back of my mind, a new plan was already forming, a final move in a game that had consumed my life for over a year. Marcus Williams would be released from jail in 3 months. He'd come back to Maggie and the baby, probably expecting to pick up where they'd left off. He was going to be very disappointed. I picked up my phone and dialed a familiar number. "Jared, it's Danny. I need to ask you a favor." "What kind of favor?" "The kind that requires your particular set of skills." "Danny, we've talked about this. Violence isn't the answer. Not violence. Something more subtle. Something that will hurt worse than any knocking." "I'm listening." "Marcus Williams gets out of jail in 3 months. When he does, I want him to understand that his problems are just beginning." "What did you have in mind?" I smiled, and it felt like winter. "I want him to lose everything he has left, and then I want him to lose everything he might ever have." "That's a tall order, brother." "I know, but I also know you're the right man for the job." "What about Maggie and the baby? What about them?" "They're innocent in this, Danny, the baby especially." "The baby is Marcus Williams' son. That makes him part of this whether I wanted him to be or not." "Jesus, Danny, what happened to you?" I thought about that question. What had happened to me? When had I become someone who could threaten an infant, even indirectly? I learned the truth, Jared. I learned that there are no innocent people in this world. Only people who haven't been caught yet. That's not true, and you know it. Is it? Tell me, Jared, if someone destroyed your life, took everything you cared about, would you just forgive and forget? I'd try. Bullcrap. You'd do exactly what I'm doing. You'd make them pay. There was a long pause. Maybe, but I'd also know when to stop. And when is that? When they've suffered enough. Who decides what's enough? You do, Danny. You decide when enough is enough. I looked around my empty house at the life I'd built and destroyed in the name of justice. It's not enough yet, Jared. Not even close. Then God help you, brother. Because this path you're on, it doesn't lead anywhere good. Maybe not. But it's my path now. I hung up and walked to the window, looking out at the suburban street where I'd once thought I was living a normal life with a faithful wife and a loving daughter. That life was gone now, destroyed by betrayal and revenge. In its place was something harder, colder, more honest about the nature of human beings and the price of trust. Marcus Williams would be out of jail soon. He'd come back to Maggie and their son, probably thinking the worst was behind him. He was wrong. The worst was yet to come. And I was going to make sure he understood that some sins can never be forgiven, some wounds never heal, and some enemies never forget. The war wasn't over. It was just entering its final phase. And this time, there would be no survivors.